Now on 7 News at 10, a shooting investigation has led to the arrest of a murder suspect who deputies say shot and killed a woman sitting in the passenger seat of a car. Plus, President Biden traveled to the southern border today in his first visit there since taking office. And scientists have discovered a new COVID subvariant. They're warning it's the most contagious one yet. Thanks for joining us tonight. First, a 7 News alert. 5 people, including 3 children, have been found dead in North Carolina in what investigators believe is a possible murder-suicide. High Point police say they responded to a neighborhood Saturday in reference to 2 people screaming for help. Now, those 2 people told officers that they were being held captive inside a home, and they did manage to escape. Law enforcement then entered that home where they found the bodies of 3 children and 2 adults. Police believe there is no active threat to the High Point community. The coroner has not yet released the victims' names. We will, of course, keep you updated as we learn more. Developing now, deputies are investigating a shooting in Greenville County that has left an elderly woman dead. Our Elise Devlin is live in the studio with more. Elise?
Good evening, Diane. The Greenville County Sheriff's Office says they have made an arrest in connection with the shooting that took place in Taylor's. Deputies tell us they received the call around 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon to the intersection of Wade Hampton Boulevard and Edwards Mill Road. That's where they say they found the woman in the passenger seat of a car with at least 1 gunshot wound. Investigators believe Jonathan Brock Lubin shot into the occupied vehicle, striking her. The coroner's office says she later passed away at a location near the scene. They've identified her as 76-year-old Betty Diane Amick of Travelers Rest. An autopsy is scheduled for Monday. Investigators have charged Lubin with murder, attempted murder, possession of a weapon during a violent crime, and assault and battery in the 1st degree. Lubin has been taken to the Greenville County Detention Center where he remains on no bond. Diane.
Thank you, Elise. All right, let's bring in meteorologist Dan Bigford for a look at that forecast. Actually had a pretty nice Sunday all in all.
For the most part, we had a little bit of rain early, a little bit more rain in the mountains, and now a front's working through, bringing a few showers to some of us. Most of the rain is light, and a lot of it now is along and southeast of the I-85 corridor. Just a few lighter showers farther north and west, but some brief moderate rainfall from northern Lawrence County on to just outside Union. This will move out over the next couple of hours. Some lower 50s in the south and some mid-50s around Greenwood. The rest of us are in the 40s, and we'll stay in the 40s through the bulk of the evening in the upstate, hitting the upper 30s to around 40 tomorrow morning, mid-30s for lows in the mountains. Sunshine is back in place tomorrow. A seasonably cool day, however, with temperatures still running a little bit above average, but there's some warmer weather around the corner, and then some wetter weather again, too. We'll explain it all for you in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Dan. Georgia lawmakers are getting ready to gather under the Gold Dome tomorrow to kick off the 2023 legislative session. They say they plan to focus on voting rights, education, internet access, and jobs. Also in the budget, they're looking at continuing mental health funding, casino gambling, and runoff rules, among other things.
Within that budget, of course, we're going to talk about health care. I mean, that's a major issue that's not just here in the state of Georgia, but across the nation.
Public safety, of course, the continuation focus on education. And even though our revenues have been up, we have to figure out a way to continue being as successful as we are.
If passed, laws could go into effect July 1st or January 1st of 2024. The U.S. House is also back in session on Monday with their newly elected Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Republicans are now the majority, and President Biden said this weekend that he is ready to work with them. But the House takeover, some are worried that Republican representatives may have trouble agreeing on certain issues. Now, this includes the debt ceiling. 6 holdouts have already said that they won't support an increase unless it's tied to specific spending reforms. McCarthy has already outlined his plans, which include tackling inflation, rising crime, and border security. Today, President Biden made his first visit to the southern border since he took office. This comes days after his announcement to crack down on unauthorized border crossings. As Christian Benavides reports, the president has also mentioned expanding restrictions on asylum.
Amid intense scrutiny over his immigration policies, President Biden visited the border for the first time as commander-in-chief. In El Paso, he met with local officials as well as Border Patrol agents at the city's busiest port of entry. El Paso has been struggling to cope with an influx of migrants.
It's a real drastic situation. It's a real crisis. I don't know what's going to happen.
Pastor Rafael Garcia, one of the many faith leaders on the ground, seeing the impact firsthand.
They're not going to disappear, so you need to have some sort of a solution for them that's humane.
With a patchwork system.
On Thursday, the president announced sweeping restrictions on asylum. The new policy says migrants crossing from Nicaragua, Cuba, and Haiti will be immediately expelled to Mexico, a policy that already applies to Venezuelans. Instead, the U.S. will accept 30,000 people a month from those four countries if they apply through a legal process and have a financial sponsor in the U.S.
I would have loved to have seen the administration lean in on immigration from day one.
Why didn't
because, you know, you'd have to ask them that. The executive branch is not the only branch of government that needs to do its job, though.
Democratic Representative Veronica Escobar, who's at the border with Biden, says Congress needs to act. Texas Republican governor met Biden upon his arrival, where he handed him a letter expressing his views on border laws before offering sharp criticism on the administration's immigration policy.
The president, who caused the chaos of the border, needed to be here. It just so happens he's 2 years and about $20 billion too late.
New polling shows only 38% of Americans approve of Mr. Biden's handling of immigration, while 62% disapprove. Cristian Benavides, CBS News.
Next on the list, President Biden is heading to Mexico City for the North American Leaders Summit, where he's expected to discuss immigration, drug trafficking, and economic partnerships. New research shows that a rare liver disease that was thought to be incurable can be cured after all. A study from the National Academy of Sciences found a new drug called Nora-1 can reverse a genetic disorder called Alagille syndrome that affects the liver. But more testing is needed before that drug is available to the public. Another study has found that people who travel more tend to be healthier, even if it's just 15 miles away from home. This was discovered by researchers from University College London. Now, doctors say increased social participation is linked to improved health. If you do plan to travel anytime soon, scientists are warning about a new COVID subvariant, which they say may be the most contagious one yet. Michael George has more on what you should know.
A new year and a new COVID subvariant is driving up COVID-19 cases. The World Health Organization is calling XBB.1.5 the most transmissible subvariant detected yet.
It does have a growth advantage above all of the other subvariants so far. We don't have any data on severity yet or on the clinical picture.
New CDC data shows cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are trending upward at a time of year when hospitals are feeling the strain.
Our ER is at full capacity, and so is our hospital with critical care beds.
With about a quarter of Americans living in high COVID-19 counties, the CDC is urging indoor masking in New York, Miami, Boston, and Fort Worth.
I try to just keep going and do what I need to do to try to stay safe.
Experts say the #1 thing people can do is get that latest booster.
The new bivalent vaccine, this is the new one that we updated in September, does seem to provide a good degree of protection against infection and terrific protection against serious illness.
U.S. officials are also concerned about the growing COVID crisis in China and a lack of information sharing.
One of the things that China is not doing is sharing its genomic surveillance data. Every other country does.
Officials say that withholding makes it harder for the scientific community to spot new variants as they emerge. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
Doctors believe the Paxlovid antiviral drug is effective against the new subvariant. Next on 7 News, the Buffalo Bills took home the victory in a storybook win, playing their first game since DeMar Hamlin went into cardiac arrest. This and more when we return.